to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. It's great to have you here. We are live streaming today across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And it helps the show if you will subscribe to the YouTube feed. We need to grow our audience so we can do more of these. This is a live taping. It is not the actual production. This will be made into a YouTube premiere video and a podcast across an international audience. That will come up in the near future. Well, everybody, I'm really excited to be here today, and you're seeing me with my other glasses off. Some of you know I've been coming back from a brain injury, and these are my tinted ones. And I took these glasses off today really because the guest is very special. I'm honored because it's a bit of a metaphor. Whenever you meet a guest and you connect on their story, sometimes you just feel that level of trust that you can open yourself up to being vulnerable. So I want to tell you a little bit about Leslee Montgomery before I bring her on the stream from the green room. Leslee's an energized speaker. She works with individuals and organizations to understand day-to-day drama. Do we have any of that? Impacting decision-making and driving forces. She's a professional counselor, mental focus specialist with over 15 years health and safety experience. Leslee worked her way up from the field to the corporate office, supporting C-suite leaders through several sectors of the construction industry. And she's also passionate about helping her clients learn the leadership strategies they need to run a drama-free workplace. And that really is the title today of, if you put the note on the screen for those watching, I got a little thing up there. That is the title today, Leading Strategies from a Drama-Free Workplace. And what I'm going to do is just check my feed here. And I've got a little message that popped up. I'm going to share that on the screen. You've got Jesus there saying, yay, I'm excited. And Jesus, thank you. We're going to get Leslee on the screen here in a minute. So we already got a lot of fans coming on. She's very popular, everybody. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, Leslee. Hey, Leslee.
Hey, Tom. Good morning, everybody. What an absolute pleasure and honor to be here and share space with you today. It's always humbling to hear how comfortable people feel around me and talk. And that's been one of my blessings in my career. So I'm excited today.
Yeah, you're so wonderful. And everybody, we should probably just talk about how we met. So I don't even remember how we met. How did we met? I mean, I get the story, but I sometimes get it a little bit twisted. So do you remember how we came together?
I remember exactly how we came together. Picture this. It is the height of the world shutting down for COVID. And I get to go see one of the last TEDx talks before everything shuts down. I was actually there to see my business coach. And you came onto the stage. And when I heard you talk about your story and what had happened to you and the business groups that you supported, I heard your story through how I support individuals like yourself in the construction industry. And I instantaneously fell in love with you. But it wasn't actually until the fall of last year, after attending a TEDx salon series in Surrey, I noticed we had a mutual connection on LinkedIn, and she had posted something, and that was it. I posted her that I wanted into Toastmasters, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. Now we are connected.
All right. I got to confess I lied. I did remember the story, but I wanted you to tell it because that's kind of like saying when you're married, saying, hey, what's our anniversary date? And waiting to see if she remembers. It truly is. And everybody, that's what this show is about. The narrative is the hero's journey. It's really a big part of coming together and riffing and storytelling. And when I started learning about you, Leslee, I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. I went, my goodness, I wonder how many people are going to connect to the threads of your story. There's a special thing that I read somewhere about you, and you branded yourself as the mental health architect. Before I get into your story, just tell us how did that come about?
That honestly came from the blessings of people who I have been working with over my career. I think a lot of the times when we're out here following our passion, we can get lost in the minutia of who am I and what exactly do I do? And so I really turned myself over to this program and this coach that I was working with. And it was her that came up with seeing me through her lens, and all of the work that I was doing really is architecting from the ground up mental health in the construction industry. And it's been such a fabulous conversation starter to begin with, but also just a really awesome place to ground myself and understand that, yeah, I'm a mental wellness architect. I help people understand, I help people build around mental health and see through it so that they understand that there's a better way to connect with people.
Oh, thank you. I just love that, and I think the uniqueness about you is you've got this brand that's emerging, and that's really why I wanted to feature you to tell the world about your brand and everything that you're doing. And that really takes me back to the story. And so everybody, you know that when I invite people to the show, not everybody gets on the show. And I said to Leslee, I want the great stuff, but I also want the backstory, the gut punches, the adversity, the things that led you to define yourself and what you're doing today. And do you remember I asked you to write me an answer to a question? Remember that? And
Yeah.
I have it here, and I'm going to read it out loud for effect, and then I'm going to get you to talk to us about it. So everybody, this is what Leslee wrote me when I asked her to come on the show. In 2010, when I decided to take my life, I was terrified, but so focused on finding a way. The 2008 recession had kicked my ass. Mentally, I was down and scared. A call to a colleague looking for work resulted in leave it to the universe, sending off a decision in my head to take my life. Wow. While eating my last meal, the universe did call with a job offer. That moment
Yeah.
became more than getting back to work. It became the moment I really understood my purpose. There aren't too many living heroes in the construction industry. It became my mission, positively affect the mental health of the people I worked with. I started to listen to people, connect with them, support them, and it grew into a mission to eradicate suicide in the construction industry. Wow, take us back there. Go right back to that moment. Tell us about that.
Wow. Well, actually, we have to kind of go back a little bit further than that. So I had my first daughter in 2002, and in 2003, I was blessed to have two more daughters. And it was absolutely fantastic. But medically, my second pregnancy was high risk. So I wasn't allowed to go back to work. And after the girls were out and mobile, we needed to figure out how to make ends meet. So I always wanted to help people. I knew from before listening to stories, my parents told that was a big passion of mine, is helping. And I think if I remember the stories correctly, I wanted to be a nurse. So helping was really a huge part, but we were falling further and further behind. I found myself in a first aid class, and a girlfriend of mine said, hey, if you want to fix some stuff, you should come into construction. And so that's how I landed in construction. I started as a first aid attendant, and I start my job on the downtown east side, where I spend almost 2.5 years being thrust into the most amazing culture I think I've ever been exposed to. Talk about learning on the run. But within the middle of the recession, I was downsized, and I had just purchased a house. I had separated from my husband, and I was living in Surrey with a new partner and a new child to take care of. Both of us lost our jobs at about the same time, and it was hard. Like it was really hard. We were working through temporary agencies, and at this point I was teaching first aid and nothing. Like I wasn't making enough money. I had been sent out to a job site as a laborer, which was hard to wrap my head around with all of the tickets I had. And I remember after my orientation, really wanting the superintendent to see the value, because coming from a temporary agency, it's a challenge, right?
Yep,
You're
absolutely.
potentially viewed as having addiction issues or, attendance issues. And really, you just want to put food on the table for your kids. The superintendent wasn't interested in who I was or what I had to offer. He had hired me to do a job, and that was to clean up carpet lint. And I have this saying now where I'll say to people, "Did you hear that?" I think that was the sound of my brain snapping. And I really do think that there was this loud crack as my brain snapped that day.
Amazing.
I'd come from customer service, and customer service honestly seemed to take a step back because the environment was so abusive. So it shows you how distorted my mind was in thinking. Pretty dried up. I picked up the phone and I had reached out to a colleague I had done some work with, and you do the pleasantries back and forth, but ultimately there is a point to the conversation. And I just said, "Hey, do you have anything? Like, I'm looking for work and things are really tight." And her response was no, but to keep a stiff upper lip and leave it to the universe, and the universe would provide. And I don't know how to explain in that moment that, well, yes, you have the opportunity to look back. You realize that something happened and there was validity to the statement. But in that moment, it just seemed like the last person to say no and not hear me properly.
Let's pause you there for a minute so you can catch your breath. Wow, I just want to first of all honor Leslee. Everybody, we're here with Leslee Montgomery, and Leslee is awesome. You see that on the screen. Leslee, I purposely got you into your backstory, and as we just heard, and I have a very big interest in brain science, neuroscience, as you know, from a brain injury I had in 2018, and I've been learning a lot about that. Let me just turn around and get something from the studio here. Hold on. This is a brain. And for many years growing up, being told I didn't really have a brain by my friends, picked on a bit. This is about the size of it. It's a replica. And I want to just say something that in the frontal lobe here, it's called the prefrontal cortex, there's what's called the rational brain. And I know you know this. And we don't really get to use that till age 25, meaning everything we hear and see and take in from the outside world, it registers in our circuitry as truth. But the other thing is that when you have a thought, everyone, that I want to die by suicide, when you're up to age 25, there's a lot of people, and I know you assume you probably come across some of these people on the construction site that can't pause and think about that thought. Does it serve me well? Try to rationalize or understand the implication of it. So I wanted to ask you, how old were you, or roughly, what age bracket, if you're not able to say exactly, when you had that moment? So you just had
so 2010, what are we now? 2023. So 37, 30,
okay.
Yeah, 36, 37-ish.
Okay. So you were clearly, in a stage of your life where you thought a lot about what, what was happening to you, and you made some decisions, and well, thank God that you didn't follow through. Take us back to your childhood and your parents, because one of the things we talk a lot about is the defining of somebody, or the shaping of someone. So you come into the world with 87 billion neurons, brain cells. They're empty, and they're usually, the brain was created to wire that with thoughts and emotions. And it's usually our parents or those around us who create that learning. Just, can you talk about your mom and dad a little bit, and how your childhood was and coming into your adulthood?
Well, I think the more that I'm learning, I would say that I had a normal childhood with regards to the amount of dysfunction most of us hide from the rest of the world. I was born back east to a couple of nomadic parents who, shortly after I was born, they had a son. And we were kind of packaged up, where I think if you were to look back on it now, it would be considered tiny living or van life living. Back then, it was definitely not as glamorous or as glorious. We were packed into a school bus, and we were slowly moved nomadically out
Wow.
west.
And how old were you then? How old were you then? roughly?
The first time it happened, I don't have any memory or recollection of it happening, but my brother and I were habitually in a situation like this where we
Yeah.
would come home and all of a sudden home would have been changed, where you would unlock the door and walk in and have carpet. The home would now turn into, oh, we're going back and living into the van for quite a bit. So I remember probably the second time it happened, my brother would probably have been in about grade 2.
Yeah.
And then it systematically happened quite repetitively throughout the whole course of our life.
And
I think by the time,
you were the eldest or older than him?
yeah. So by the time I made it to high school, I had already gone to 15 schools. I like
Wow.
to tell everybody I was a military brat without actually being in the military. We just moved around that much. No sense of certainty or
Goodness.
settlement.
I want to just jump in there and honor you. So again, I honor you, Leslie. And one of the things we heard in the early segment was the change in your life. You had children and you just bought a house, and then, I always say this, that corporate America doesn't look after anyone. We have to look after ourselves. And I saw my father get downsized and laid off, and when I was a kid, and it's just, you're never prepared for that. And I
Mhm.
kind of chuckle here when we're connected by all these threads. When Leslie, when you said about your military, I was, I mean, I'm a military brat. I was raised by a military father, and a part of me was going to go, really? Until you clarified, I was going to, really? I didn't know that part about your story. Come on, we got to talk. And
Yeah.
it's. I'll go back and keep going, but on that point, was that shame, or was that just you didn't want people to know the reality?
You know what? In all honesty, it wasn't until I was about 35 with one of my partners who looked at me one day, and I think we were probably battling back and forth. And he said, you turned out not so bad for a kid who grew up homeless. And it stopped me dead in my tracks. I know there was a whole bunch of profanity that felt like
Yeah,
flew from my mouth, but it blew my mind because it was so normal. It just meant that the concept of home was different for me,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah.
I mean, it's
So I
amazing.
don't think I really understood it until after I started explaining it to people that I did grow up in a different fashion, which mainstream society would consider
Yeah,
homeless for
yeah.
a significant portion of my life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I use that term sometimes, homeless, and I think about it has very different context. Going back to the brain again, so everybody, as we're dissecting Leslie's story for a purpose here, what we're really trying to do is find out why you do what you do today, and we're just about at that part of my learning, and the audience, Leslie, is that you look at different kinds of people who have the type of upbringing you do, and they're not resilient. They get involved in drugs or difficult challenges. And I know you mentioned that
Mm,
down, I think it was the downtown east side or experiences, and they take themselves out, or they like Tony Robbins is a mentor to us, the crazy
yeah.
eight, where you're on this crazy eight of ups and downs in your emotions, and people who want to take their lives by suicide will do it. They don't talk about it, they do it. The people who really are just living with the voices or pain in their head, they don't want to die. They want what's going
Yeah.
on in their mind to stop. And that's why I so love you and honor your story, everyone, because you need to follow and listen to this lady, Leslie, that you came through all of this backstory, which people will learn more about from you if you do public speaking. You had that moment, but you stayed. You stayed on the crazy eight, and you stayed
Mhm.
because you wanted to. And I wrote it down here: nurse helping people, help people. That is
Yeah.
like unbelievable. Uh, get a little bit round of applause there for you. That is incredible. So let's go to that part of the show. So you're this nomad in tiny house living, and then you get into this moment, and you save yourself in your mind. You get a call, and you're now working in the construction industry. I'm going to show a picture here
Yeah.
on the screen if I can, while we keep talking there. Tell us about what it was like, your first day on the job in the construction industry, being obviously a woman as well.
Oh, first day on the job, super surreal, I think. I was sent out as a first aid attendant. I hadn't achieved my safety.
By the way, there's a
It was
favorite
I
for
love
the
my lid. That's my
yeah.
actual lid I wear in the field right now. So that's
I'm
awesome.
everybody. You can't see this on the podcast when it comes out, but if you're doing the YouTube video, you'll see it. The picture of Leslee and her gear actually on a job site. So tell us more and tell us where that was.
Oh, those pictures were purely done for headshot. That was out in
Okay.
a job site out off
Yeah.
of 200 there. But I think what I really liked when I came into the construction industry, there seems like there's structure, but there wasn't really, and there was a lot of time for me to stand around and watch. And if I asked the right question and if I was inquisitive the right way, people were more than willing to talk to me. And I think based on how I kind of grew up, I did spend a lot of time watching people. I'm
Yeah.
a great watcher before I kind of go in. Our dad used to say, he had kids to be seen, not heard. So we did a really good job that way.
I love that.
And I found the more times I would talk to people, you would pick up on that stuff where, hey, yesterday and the other day you seem to be in this mood, and then today you're in this mood. I think I'm going to go check on you in a non-really inquisitive way, but just kind of bounce around and see what's going on for you today. And the more I did that, the more people would just appreciate that I was there to chat, but not necessarily chat about what was going on for work.
Absolutely.
And I started to find I had I started to feel that purpose. It was like, cool, I can pick up on this. I love to listen to people. I can go listen to them, tell me what's going on for them. And if they're off, I can have them reset and refocused and get them back to work.
That is
with some tools. Yeah.
That is amazing. By the way, we have another guest who's just put a little thumbs up here. We're going to show you that. Yay. Les. And thank you, Amandeep Bisla. That is now etched into the production. We appreciate you chiming in. Leslee, this is something, again, going back to the science of the brain that I love to talk about. By the way, if I wanted to, I could pull this apart and start really showing you the amygdala, which is really all the emotional pain sits. That going back to your father, your father was a nomad, but you just told us something that it was something that your dad taught you, about listening and those. That's an amazing skill for any leader watching this. And today's talk is going to get into drama in the workplace and some leadership. But that's a skill, and it's not easy to build rapport with people that quickly, from my experience and learning from other guests. And you got it. And that's one of the things with you and I, when we sat down, it was literally in the first few minutes that I felt comfortable with you. And there's something about you. Again, I know you're very humble, but when people feel they can talk to this lady about anything, that I believe is God's gift to have you do what you do, saving so many people. You told me a statistic about the construction industry, and I heard it from you in your recent talk at Buildex, which we're going to talk about, that incredible convention, about how many people actually perish by suicide construction. Tell me that.
So our stats, it breaks down to 53.2 people per every 100,000 in the construction industry that will take their life every year. And so for the stat that we have for British Columbia, it's based on the numbers that we have in the industry right now, which is approximately 225,000. So on any given year, we're looking at losing 12 individuals in the construction industry to suicide. And more of my research has started to point to the fact that when I say construction worker, a lot of people track to an immediate spot in their brain where they see worn out boots, dirty jeans, a vest, and a hard hat. But there's men and women who work in the offices that have to make some pretty tough decisions. And the stats are now showing that it's a 70-30 split from the field to the office. So a lot of us are perishing out there because of this industry. And we need to figure out how we're going to get this back on track.
Well, thank you. We'll hear more about that in a bit. I had this great experience recently where I came down to Buildex, which is a convention that was held at the beautiful Vancouver Trade and Convention Center. And I saw you speak, and I learned so much in that 1 hour that you did. And everyone, Leslee's an amazing speaker, and I want to just do something now to to honor that. So just hold on. I'm going to put something on the screen and let you hear from somebody who saw you speak, and then afterwards, he was he did a little bit of a testimonial. So let's put this on the screen there. The Vancouver West Convention Center, Vancouver, British Columbia, downtown, February 15th. I just came out of a session watching a lady named Leslee Montgomery. And the reason why I'm taking my glasses off, some people know who I am with or without glasses. Leslee, I can't say enough. I've seen her speak in a Toastmaster group. She's a mental health architect. She works in the job sites of the construction industry, working with people to help them strengthen their mental health, especially in a very difficult industry. She stood on a stage in that building in front of a full room for almost an hour and did one of the most powerful talks I've ever seen. She's a great storyteller. The structure of her speech was incredible. She kept us engaged, but she had lived experience with her topic. And so I'd highly recommend her as a speaker, storyteller, anywhere where there's a need to understand the power of mental health and wellness from somebody who knows what it's like. That was, let me get that off the screen there. That was just literally coming out of that. Now, tell me what you felt watching me say that about you, and just bring it.
It's someone once asked me, how do I know I make a difference? And it's watching stuff like that, but I'm not used to it. So it's so wonderful to see, but it's also because it's something that comes so naturally. I always get, I don't know, to process the energy, to see myself and know that I've made that connection and impact. It's very powerful and very moving. Yeah.
So I produced, I actually wasn't even planning on what I was going to do with that, but I'm going to go vulnerable with you and talk about this for a moment because you lifted my day. That day I had, Leslee had invited me to speak, and everybody, the BuildX conference is quite an awesome event. And I couldn't get out of bed that morning. And as you know, I've been, coming back through a brain injury in 2018. And Leslee, I struggle with anxiety and depression. It's just because my life's changed so much. Some days it's just one of those things. I'm making progress. And I remember I didn't want to let you down, but I struggled. And I said to my wife, I don't think I can go. Like, I was just feeling that bad. She said something to me because she'd met you through the Toastmasters public speaking work we do. She said, it'll be good for you. And she said, I know I heard, Leslee told me, because he must have said this to her. She's really, really thrilled that you'd come down to see her. I got out of bed, I got myself together, and I went down there. And I walked in that room, and when I saw you, it lifted me. And that's the message I want to give to anybody struggling with mental illness, that Leslee and I know, that human connection is a way to be mentally stronger. I didn't want to network and talk to too many people. And I even sat in the lobby till you talked. But afterwards, I felt like I was a new person. And that in itself is just the gift of what you're doing, sharing your story with the world. That you affected one person that day, but there were hundreds of other people in the room, and also the videos and things they'll see of this. I just want to say thank you. So let's go back to you, to the BuildX, and we're going to take that next leap in your story. So there you were, and you came through the experiences of your life. You had that moment, and then you survived wanting to die by suicide. Then you decide, I'm going to be somebody who helps others. And then you get invited to BuildX. Tell us how that went for you, and a little bit about the strategies that you were going to teach us today related to dealing with the workplace.
Well, BuildX fell into my lap because of blessings of friends out there. The last couple of years, I've really started to understand the mission and the passion driving me forward. And so there was more effort to figure out how to move this process along. So coming into BuildX, the motivation was coming from a lot of what I see my superintendents on the job site struggle with. So for the people watching, one of the things that's unique about me is I really do make the effort to understand consistently. So it's not as if I've retired from the field and I'm just reading statistical information.
Yeah.
On any given week, I'm in the field 1 to 2 days to make sure I'm still connecting. And it was one of the superintendents I had worked with recently, and he was managing somebody else. And he just went, I just want a drama-free day.
Wow.
And that's where everything started to come together for me. And I'm like, hey man.
Leslee, give me one of those. I'll take one of those every day. I don't think life is without drama. My goodness.
And everything fell together for me, because when you're pioneering in an industry that is nervous about mental health because it comes across as feminine, and they think that we're going to sit down and we're going to be in a group type setting and you're going to discuss your most vulnerable things in front of everybody. And you realize, no, that's not what we're doing. But we're able to see through what is coming into the job site, and how do we manage that so that our superintendent can manage and understand that, hey, maybe so-and-so is struggling with something at home right now. Maybe they are going through relationship issues. Doesn't mean they don't function well on the job. It might mean that they're super distracted.
Yeah.
We can give them a different task that has them feel value, and they produce, and then the project moves along. So it really came from a superintendent I had been working with when that came out of his mouth, the drama-free day, and it all came together to me. I'm like, hey, that's exactly what I do.
So I want to riff with you on that, because my brain goes in different directions. It's multidimensional, the way I think. That I'm thinking about that moment on the site, and he says that to you, and then that comes back to you. I was also thinking about what you said about the construction industry, and I appreciate you mentioning that we met while you were watching me do a talk about mental illness, or mental health, that it's so prevalent. I've worked in 5 sectors, and I'm not better than anybody else. I just couldn't figure out who I was and moved around. But it's so prevalent in every sector, and in particularly as you go up to the executive, the senior suite, C-suite, where you do have some experience. Nobody talks about it. And I was one of those, and that's why I talked about it on my TED Talk, that we need to have those conversations like you do. So I'm just going to say one more thing, give it back to you. I want to hear about a bit of that C-suite guidance or experience. That here you are, and your company is Humanology Partners, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody, if you see that on the stock ticker on the screen, if you're watching the video, go to that site, check it out. So here's Leslee again, taking her story, going into the field of construction, and I believe you love what you do. And she's on. Yeah,
yes.
and she's on site, and she's basically doing check-ins or doing work, which I'm going to get you to talk about, because I think the audience may not be as clear on what that all means. And then you're using strategies to help people really brighten their days or deal with loss. Maybe a worker was killed on the job site, or there was a suicidal situation. You said something to me, and we'll give it back to you on this to talk about all that you were up on the I can't just disclose it for confidentiality, but you were saying that you were out at visiting a site recently, and it was somewhere in British Columbia where we are, and a group of people said something positively to you about your about just basically how that went. So now I've scrambled your brain and thrown a bunch of stuff at you. So what it is tell us about the the C-suite. A little bit about when you go on site, what do you actually do, and anything else you want to throw in there.
Well, the C-suite is an amazing place to get access to and to be welcome into the offices, to have those individuals feel comfortable enough to start shedding what's going on for them. And I've found that it's been powerful in the impact, because the C-suite are the ones that streamline down, right? And so a lot of times we find problems in the middle management sector.
Yeah.
Things that I've noticed is once you move from the field to the office, there seems to be challenges remembering what it was like in the field. I think it's like an imprint. We remember the last day we were there and all of what, but time stops there, and we still plan to that modality, forgetting that 10 years has come and gone since then. And so there's more challenges there. So I find a lot of the work you do with the C-suite is them wanting to kind of go back to the good old days and where things were a little bit different. And the reality is what we're finding now is those times weren't really that great to begin with.
Yeah.
The C-suite is struggling with regards to how they choose to motivate. So our industry is now inundated with bullying and harassment claims all over the place for, actual harassment, but then slips of the tongue where these are typical belonging cues that tell me I'm safe to talk around you. We're a tough industry. There are certain things I should be able to say. And the thing that we're learning now is that's not the case. Typically, I find myself on job sites from a compliance perspective because people see me and I am an effective health and safety advisor. My job is to make sure that I'm advising to make sure nobody's getting hurt. But I kind of went with the philosophy years ago that it's not about getting people home because home is not safe. I think a whole bunch of people misunderstand that once we leave the job site that we get to go home, and home's this amazingly safe place. And I started to meet individuals in the field that have told me they feel much safer at work than they do in their home environment. Made me just take a step back going like, holy cow.
Hey, listen, I want to jump.
Dangerous.
Go ahead. I want to jump in there. Everybody, we're with Leslee Montgomery, mental health architect, extraordinary speaker, Humanology Partners. I'm giving you another plug there. But riffing back and forth here on the work you do. So when I give it back to you, tell us why people call you and, if I'm in business, because we want people to call you so you can work with them. But I was just thinking about what you said. You and I talk about one of the things I do. I was a CEO for most of my career. I became an executive coach, and I've done a lot of coaching in the last 5 years with a bunch of companies in the construction industry. And I get these guys you're talking about, the senior leaders, in a cone of silence, and it's all confidential. Otherwise, I can lose my coaching license. And they're showing up with blood on their shirts. They're literally, once I get them talking, opening up about all the things. That's why you're so brilliant in what you're telling us that you just said. It's broken at home. My dad was an alcoholic and he treated me this way. So all of those thought patterns, again, which wire in as the mechanics of the brain in early ages, they bring into the workplace. Nobody's ever taught them how to treat people. There's one guy who said to me, my boss, basically I watch him. He goes out on the job site with a bunch of the workers who are working their butts off. And he says, get this done. You guys are a bunch of effing monkeys. That's how he treats them. And then my brain riffs and goes back to my childhood. My father was an alcoholic, but also a commanding officer in the military, and the boot would be so far up your rear end if you didn't get straight A's or you didn't get things done. All this fear comes with leaders, and you're in a tough industry, as you said. I get it because I've spent some time there where these people, I remember in high school, Leslie, pulling wire on the job sites. My dad was an electrician and seeing all that firsthand. And it's like, wow, there was never a Leslie, the architect, on site there coming around checking in after Tom just got his butt kicked by somebody and called a Hindu because some guy was racial prejudice. There wasn't anybody coming saying, hey, just checking in with you, how you doing? And then I would take that home. And of course, so yeah, I mean, this is about storytelling. Every time you say something, you get me to open up. And that story just came way back from my childhood. But what a blessing it is what you're doing. So going right back to you, we're talking about the C-suite. I know before we did this interview, you were working on some stuff. Feel free to share your strategy or anything at all that related. But how have you advised some of these folks?
Sometimes, one of the things that I think about, and one of the questions that came up at BuildX that I always have to keep in mind, I think Tony Robbins said it in an interview I listened to him recently, said 16 touch points to sell somebody, to convert a lead to a sale. And we're expecting, because we show up 16. And share with people or say, hey, it looks like you're going through something today. Why don't we just sit down and you can tell me all about it? And then we're kind of disappointed when we're like, well, I went over and asked so-and-so if everything was okay, and they gave me the everything's okay. Well, 90% of us use okay to just deflect and make people go away. And then
Yeah,
I'll use okay back to say, awesome, I don't have to get into this conversation anymore.
exactly.
Right. So,
I
so yeah, it.
Yeah, I was just blown away in my mind, everybody. That's a teaching moment right there. 16 touch points. I come from a background of sales in my most of my career, and it was 5 touch points. But with this subject, 16, I mean, I think what you're trying to tell us is, when you say, Tom, are you okay? You're touching me that one touch point. I'm not there yet. And I've gone through my own therapy on mental illness, as I've told you, that we talk about the emotion of shame, which the emotion of shame is right beside, another emotion, which is guilt. And shame can lead to wanting to die by suicide, wanting to hide, wanting not to share and tell people. And so I've navigated that where when I had my concussion, Leslie, and they asked me to get psychiatric help to deal with depression and anxiety, I actually was ashamed in my mind that I deflected it. It took me 2 years to actually see a psychiatrist. And I'm being honest with you and my viewers, vulnerable, that on the workplace, what Leslie's teaching us is, especially for the top leaders listening to this show, that, we need to start that conversation. We need to have Leslie come into the job site and teach from that level even down. So imagine this, Leslie, and I worked at Costco for a couple of years while I was going through my recovery. I remember looking up at the penthouse, the management, and saying, why don't any of you guys come down here while we're banging our bodies around and say, how are you guys doing? And they would just keep pushing quotas and this and that. And then I finally realized, it's okay to say we're not okay, but you got to give us that culture. You got to start that culture from above, that it's a courage culture where it's okay to say how you're feeling. Tell us one more strategy about sort of how you create this. What did you call it? Drama-free workplace. Just give us anything, and then I'm going to go back to Buildex and talk about that again.
Okay, well, I think the biggest thing that I do is I go out and I ask questions that have nothing to do with work. So I check in. We do surveys. Hey, today's survey is, do you eat bacon or sausage? And it disrupts the way people are thinking, right? Bacon or sausage. I thought you're coming over here to talk to me about safety. Well, I'm talking to you about safety things right now. Like, come on, man, let's get into this. Do you like bacon or sausage? Well, what kind of application are we talking about here? Awesome. We are now engaged in a conversation. This is something passionate, bacon, sausage. Can do the same thing with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, Smarties, M&Ms. People are habitual. We can start conversations. So I start conversations with them that way. Super innocent. You get to learn so much about somebody. And then you just kind of come back every day with something new. And there's your touch points coming in.
Exactly.
And maybe one day you come around and you're not feeling good. Right. And I think we're looking for that courage champion to come into our executive offices, into our toolbox rooms and say, let me bear it all for you. Oh, wait a minute. Last time someone stepped up in this environment and bared it all, we all laughed and chuckled because some of them, that's just the way our energy process is. But some people don't really care. So you have to start bridging the gap. So I know you were talking about Buildex. So perfect example, leading up into Buildex, I'm still actively working on job sites. I can feel my anxiety. I can feel it preventing me from leaving the house. I get so worked up and I'm in a space that I shouldn't be in. I have to keep pulling myself back. But I'm also at that state where my fuse is really short. So in the household, my daughters know if my fuse is short and I'm off, they make direct eye contact with me and they say pineapple. And that triggers my brain to go, wait a minute, something's off with me. And so everybody gets introduced to me with that. Listen, if you're talking to me and I'm not making eye contact or you're not getting the response you want, you make eye contact with me. You go, Leslie, pineapple. And it triggers my brain to tell me I'm not listening to you appropriately now in this moment.
That's
But I
beautiful.
was on the job site 2 weeks beforehand, and I did tell them, and I went after them for a few things. And I also said, I am so anxious right now about what I've got coming up, and this is how it's coming out. So you guys need to be aware of this, that I'm not personally attacking you, but this is how triggered I am, and this is how you can help support me, and this is how we can come together, and you can learn a little bit about what it's like to be around someone who's super, super anxious right now. And I will let you know that when I come out into the field, I am probably distracted. So I do need you to do a little bit more for me and pay attention to me. And they look at you after you've earned their trust and they say, yeah, we got your back. What's that
That's
like
all.
for you?
That is awesome. I just want to put this on the screen using the word awesome. Got another fan here. We'll just read that out loud, everybody. We got somebody chatting in with us live. Leslee's awesome. Her sincerity and honesty to support the well-being of others in these days of entitlement is humbling. And that's from David Dean. Thank you, David. David's watching us live on LinkedIn, everyone. We're live streaming for a future release of this interview. It's totally amazing. And I think you and your BuildX talk, and everybody, if you're a North American audience, BuildX was recently, it's a construction industry convention, was held at the Vancouver Trade and Convention Center here in Vancouver, but I believe it moves around the country and does that. And so if you don't know what that is, it's really for the industry, about trends and about networking, about meeting people like Leslee, a subject matter expert that matters to that industry. And I'm sorry, because of my cognition, sometimes I trip my thoughts up and confuse the stories. Was it you in your BuildX telling a story about this one case where this guy was banging his shoulder against a brick? Yeah, I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have time for the whole story, but the gist of it was, Leslie, was one of the things I love about you, and we'll talk about your public speaking, because I want people to call you to hear you more. I mean, I'm in your life for life to support you with your mission, but everybody, your mission is what? To eradicate. Tell us that
Suicide.
from the
To
construction
eradicate
industry.
suicide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but all those people that she helped know other people, so this is going to permeate around the world. But the thing I was getting at is, I lost my train of thought, going back to telling that story about some guy in a workplace who had a dislocated shoulder, and he was trying to bang it against the wall to fix it because he didn't want to get up. Just give us a Cole's notes on that, just 1 minute of that.
Yeah, he'd hurt himself, and been a kind of repetitive injury, and he felt he could put it back in place. And when I found him on site, it was apparent that it wasn't, but he was going to keep at it until I realized he had no pulse in his hand. And it was a matter of, you'll never pick your daughter up again with that arm if you don't let me take you to the hospital.
And it was
And
just
once I got
shame.
him in the car, he burst into
Yeah.
tears.
And thank you for sharing that. I honor you for your being vulnerable. Everybody, that story really, when you see her talking and telling these stories, it gets you into the journey. And that's what we remember about your talk, is not what you said, but how you made us feel. That particular story really has a deeper meaning. And it comes back to what I was saying when I was thinking about the construction industry coaching I've done, that, there is shame, because many guys, particularly raised, we don't complain. We have to be tough. And our fathers, we love our fathers, by the way. My dad passed away a few years ago. He was a bit of a strange for me, but he was a military man, a bit of a hard drinker, hurt the family. But the thing is, my dad, when he look and ask the question, tell me about grandpa, tell me about your life growing up, you find that, they were taught to be like tough and not
Yeah.
complain. There's some great work that's done by, I just want to riff on this for a minute with you. I think about Brene Brown and her work. I believe you might have heard about her. I'm using that now in my coaching practice with guys, and I'll ask the question, yes or no, is vulnerability a strength or a weakness? 98% of them will say it's a weakness. And then I give them a quiz and ask them to define what being vulnerable is. They don't know what the definition is. Vulnerability is opening yourself opening yourself up to perhaps being vulnerable, to being seen as maybe weak. But the truth is, vulnerability is actually a strength. It's a leadership strength. I knew a guy once who could stand in front of people, and he was so tough, kind of like what you defined as some of these leaders you coach or you see in the field. And he was so tough, everybody couldn't see him as real. And then one day he cracked. He said something Like I think something about his daughter had been diagnosed with an illness, and he said, "Sorry guys, I need to just pause and take a sip of water last night." And everybody for the first time looked at him and said, "That dude, you're real. Where is that
Mm-hmm.
part of you?" And
Mm-hmm.
I believe, Leslie, that until people can show they're vulnerable and it's okay to open up, that those
Mm-hmm.
conversations aren't going to happen. Again, we're talking to Leslee Montgomery, who is a company is Humanology Partners. She's eradicating suicide in the construction industry with her amazing work. She's a speaker, and she is vulnerable because she figured out how to use her story and be with people who sometimes need a shoulder to lean on. So going back to
Mm-hmm.
BuildX, I'm going to share something. We'll watch it together. I put this together and I'm so excited. I want it in the production so you can use this. So
Today and talk to you about mental health, and specifically mental health in the workplace. Are you okay? I remember my hands shaking. They shook so bad that day. Have you ever tried to dial a phone number when your hands are shaking? This one. Focus, Leslie, this one. That one. I heard it connect and I heard the ringing on the other end of the line. The small talk settled my belly. I was so nauseous. A hard swallow got stuck in my throat when I asked my colleague, did she have any work? Did she know of any work? Like the final curtain at the theater, the energy drained from my body when she said no.
okay, I'm going to take that off the screen there. I know you're having emotions and seeing yourself. And going back to what you said about, I don't know why when you ask me what I think about that, what I can't express it. It's because you have humility. You know in yourself. You don't need to brag and tell people. That I want to tell everybody that that's part of a 44 minute talk that Leslie did at BuildX, the convention. 44 minutes. I don't know about you, everybody out there who's ever tried to do public speaking, but Leslie, to hold a room for 44 minutes, that's considered a keynote in the big leagues. What I said about you is so powerful. Leslie's self-taught, I believe, and but I think it's because you're natural, because you believe in what you're saying, and you come alive when you tell your stories. But the part I wanted to focus in on is, did you hear at the beginning when you started shaking your hands? This was the beginning of the talk. Nobody knew what you're doing. Did you hear that voice? Are you okay? Did you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you in 30 seconds, but I'm going to say this. That is why everybody, I believe that this is a speaker that is up and coming that people will want to see. That is so powerful because you did a story that was so real that somebody asked you, and I was in the room when they said it, they had fear in their voice. Are you okay? Because they thought you were having a breakdown or you're trembling. That was amazing. Tell us what you felt about that clip just for a minute.
Oh, coming like that. You know what? And I think I summed it up at the end of BuildX. I don't think it gets easier to tell the story. You just have to open yourself up and hope that the vulnerability hits.
Yep.
But it's
But
interesting.
Where'd you learn to tell stories like that? Seriously.
I played with that. I played with that opening. I knew I wanted to tighten it up. And then as soon as I stepped up there, I saw my hands shaking and I was like, oh, dude, you've just been given the gift. Your hands are actually
Okay,
shaking.
See that, Leslie, that you just blessed the audience, everybody. Teaching moment. I didn't know that. And by the way, the guy who shot that video was me. I was sitting in the front row the whole time. I had my iPhone on. Amazing camera, by the way, iPhone. And that I didn't know. I thought that was part of but what you heard Leslie do, that's a skill, Leslie. That's a skill that as a speaker, if you've got that, you've got to go deeper and do something more, continue to use that. Because what happened is there was some adversity there, everybody, and what you heard her just say, teaching moment for all those speakers, is instead of letting that get out of control, she took it into being a vulnerable moment to capture your audience. that one thing in your 40-minute speech, that there's so much good in there. That one thing is what I always remember about your speech, that for the rest of my life. And that's what they say, if you can make her feel. I'm going to put another video up and we'll just watch this one. I promise I won't ask you, what do you feel about this? But I created this so you could use this production in the future when you have all the assets. But everybody, I put this together after BuildX. I took 85 pictures there and I just recorded it and I put this together, and I know you've seen it. We're going to share it with the audience. We're going to watch it together. Oh my God, I got to remove that. Oh, I'm vibrating in my chair. Talk to me. Anything I'm telling you about, throw out words, even one word. How do you feel about it?
Just like, honestly, so much fun. It was so much fun. And I think, I'll be honest with you. So I was not prepared to have that many people show up because of the challenge to get a foothold or a stronghold with mental health. Just seeing how many people that were in the room was just absolutely mind-blowing and so exciting, because it tells me that now is the time we can start talking about this stuff, and that people are willing to have people come in and share some vulnerability and give them some strategies to help them understand why their projects are out of skew, right? Why morale is down. We're losing people to turnover, injuries, like just so powerful, and just absolutely blessed, Tom, that you were there and everything that
I'm glad I
you
was.
snuck behind the scenes and showed me you were paying attention.
I am glad I got out of bed that morning and got past my woe is me self. Everybody, we're getting close to the end of the time. We'll have you back again, I'm sure, as your story evolves. But we're with Leslee Montgomery. She is the humanologypartners.com on the screen. Go check it out. Leslie's available to come work with any organization to talk about mental wellness from a perspective of having conversations and creating drama-free workplaces. At the C-suite, everybody, I've been there, that's my peers. We know that we need to use our voices to encourage others, and yet many of us don't know how to do it. You need to connect with Leslee. You need to connect with Leslee and watch this trailer we just showed you, BuildX, if you're in the area of industry of public speaking, and you need to have somebody come out to hold a room like she can, tell stories, because it's those stories that will permeate out into your audiences and back into the workplace that will help other people. And so, Leslee, I'm embarrassing you and plugging you so much on the show, but as you know, I'm a huge fan, and we, by fortuitous intersections, came across each other just by chance. And a lot of people ask me, Tom, what do you do? And actually, I have a platform. I'm a thought leader, and I'm out there using stories to teach. But also, the hidden part of it is, there was a time in my life where I didn't know if I wanted to be here, but to stay above level, I attract people who seriously are the heroes and the heroines. And my job for the rest of my life is to stay connected and help people like Leslee share their stories. And for every one person, I'll put it this way before I give it back to you as we close this. For every time I go to sleep, I know that Leslie's out there tomorrow, and today she was out there and she saved or changed a life. She transformed someone. That if I had a chance to impact you by putting your story out there and somebody saw it and heard that, then that makes my life worth living. I'm so proud of you. So as we move to wrapping up, I just want to make a couple comments and then honor you with a couple things here. let's give it back to you before I do that. And tell us any last wisdom, one thing that you want to share with your audience today before we wrap up.
So I think the big thing that I'd like to share with the audience is, if you're going to reach out to me to ask how to check in with somebody, or if you should check in with somebody, then you absolutely should. Just bounce by their desk, shoot them a text message, let them know that you've noticed that they've been going through some stuff and you're available to talk, and leave it at that. Leave it at one touch point. Don't expect anything back, but let them know. Start saying hi to everybody. We start communicating, we'll start breaking down those walls, and people will feel more inclined to share some of their vulnerable moments with us. Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely. And I love talking about mental health because mental illness is such a taboo, a stigma. But to all of you who just heard Leslee, everybody has some form of mental illness. It's part of a human emotion, and sharing our emotions. And we all have days that are challenging days. But sharing that actually makes us mentally stronger. Keeping it inside, not labeling it and saying, I feel down today, or I feel stressed, or what. Not labeling your emotions, everybody, and then expressing it is actually a pathway to suicide, or a pathway to mental illness, which could change your life forever. So please listen to Leslee. She had that great advice. So now I'm going to honor you with 4 words. I do this. I've got my little piece of paper here. 4 words that I've been not scripted, right? These are leadership words as you're speaking today. 1 is heroine. The woman who goes out selflessly and helps others. You become a heroine in people's lives. Number 2 is humility. And we got that because each time I show you a clip, I think it's really hard for you to express, self-compassion maybe. There's an area for you to dig deeper, find out why, but you don't know how good you are. And you have great humility. But I want you to know from me that you are good, and I want you to believe in that and receive the praise because you're so worthy. Number 3 is courage, the courage to open yourself up and go do what you're doing. And my goodness, there's a bunch of us guys who are sitting in cushy chairs in executive offices in our careers, and you're out there on the job site putting yourself out there in the cold. Another person that I know through you sent me a picture of somewhere in Alberta, but there we are again. That's you in a job site, but we know that it's not warm where you go. And I guess the last one I'm going to put out here is I say leadership word, but is love, and leaders who can, what we call transformational leadership. So be able to express to others that they care and love people through their words without saying that. Those are the people that they can take and transform because those people connect to them. So congratulations. And then one more thing, we're going to put my self screen at me here. So those on the podcast won't see this. So just pardon me, Leslee. I'm going to, do you see that big TV screen behind me in the studio?
Yeah.
So we're going to full screen it. So that on the screen there is a challenge coin. So I'm going to bring you back on here and talk to you about it. Have you ever heard what challenge coins are?
No.
So the challenge coins were created in World War II, I believe. I have this in my notes. World War II, and they were used by soldiers. They would carry them and used really to commit to each other, a community. So they would have fun. For example, if you didn't have your coin and you showed up, you'd buy drinks, or maybe you'd get dinner. They're used around the world today to create community. Alcoholics Anonymous, where my dad was for 22 years before he passed, had his version of coin. First responders have theirs, and even schools and different associations. When I created this show, it was just on a whim to bring people on to tell their stories to see if they do this. I wanted to have an award, so I had minted and created these coins. They are double-sided. The back of it is a hero's journey narrative, beautifully illustrated by Joseph Campbell, which is storytelling narrative. The front is the show art. It comes, it'll be coming to you, and officially now I'm going to induct you into the Quiet Warrior global community. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now when you look across our show, a little shameless plug, we've had over 255 guests now through my show. These are all people from around the world, Europe, everywhere, who come with a story that they've turned into something to help others. And you're unique. You're in the 1% because most people don't do that in their lifetime. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior Tribe. We're going to Celebrate with some fireworks there. There you go.
Yay!
All right. And so on that note, I want to just, as we wrap up here, I want to thank you so much and tell people where they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, you guys can get a hold of me, Leslee M at humanologypartners.ca. But check out our website. We have a new field guide that should be going live this week, and I'm super excited about it. It's something I've been working on for a bit. It's a mental health field guide for the trades. Some short, simple tricks and not too gaudy, so it can go on a safety board and people might actually look at it.
Okay.
Something I'm excited about.
I love it. I'm excited too. And I'm going to have Leslee back in a future show, and I'm just going to tease everybody and don't say anything. But my new nickname for Leslee is Sourdough, and so you'll need to understand what that is. Everyone, ask her about it. And on that note, everyone, thank you for being here. To all those who are chatting with us live, this will be produced and released in the future in podcast and YouTube video. I want to just say, live the life that you deserve and desire, everybody, and live with your passion like you see that Leslee does. And thank you, Leslee, again for being on the show.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
All right. We're still in the studio, so if anybody's still there, we're having fun. Very rarely do you get to peek into a studio, see all the bloopers and things that go on.